Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, September 15th, 2022. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello, everyone listening. Welcome for joining us. Oh, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show. This week, I am Norm, and joining me is Kishore Hari.
Hello. Apologies for last week in the sense that we overlooked Rose City Comic Con in our blitz of Comic Cons, which was this past weekend. So apologies. That's obviously a huge con on the circuit too. But I will highlight, as we are about to dive deep into D23, that the best cosplay, maybe the best cosplay of the season, was at D23.
Okay, I don't know if I saw this one because nothing stuck out to me as the best one of the season.
Somebody cosplayed as the Dumbo ride, and it was a working mechanical cosplay where the ride, and it's basically a woman in like a kind of like a corset, and around her torso are the flying Dumbos that are going up and down, mechanically spinning around her. So she went as the ride, and it was, it's incredibly detailed and just gorgeous. It's just one of those things it's like a museum piece, not a cosplay, but there is a person wearing this thing.
That's a lot of floor space. That's a lot of square footage that dress could take.
It was still like relatively contained because things were miniaturized smartly, but it was still like probably like a 3-foot radius around this person. I wouldn't say it's the most mobile cosplay I've ever seen, and I wonder if she had to be plugged into the wall or something. But it was just dramatic and also obscure. Like
yeah, like I've seen people dress up as favorite characters from rides, and a lot of their favorite animatronics. Like every ride has the lore behind it, right? And the characters over time that the cast members and the fans, the big Disney fans, have kind of identified with. But to choose a ride and then a lesser known ride that, like, when you think of, I guess Dumbo is iconic in a way in that style. If you've ever seen it, you are flying on little elephants that are kind of like a carousel, but they are mounted from a center pillar, and they elevate up and down as they spin around the pillar, very much like the rocket ship ride in Tomorrowland.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could see someone doing teacups, right? But not.
Yeah, teacups is definitely more iconic, but yeah, I get it. It's obscure, and but I think that's part of the reason I loved it, is that it was so obscure, and you can see all the motion, and like. If you've been on this ride, it's one of those where everything starts low and then sort of elevates and go. Oh, you're watching it.
I'm watching. You just shared the link. I'm going to include this in the show notes. You undersold the mechanical action.
It's incredible.
Of this dress. Yes, you are correct. Yes. Is that a handler? Like,
yeah, there's a driver for the actual ride off to the side who's wearing the outfit of the circus master from Dumbo.
Yes. Also, I see with a RC transmitter around his neck to theoretically, I guess, actuate the rides. But it does the full elevation, and it is a full carousel. Amazing. The headgear, too. Oh, she looks so happy wearing it. That is so cool. Wow. Yeah. Well done.
It's the most dramatic of the season.
Yeah. The credit is Tina's Disneyland Costumes. Tina Elliott, and I'll include a link also to her Instagram. Where there are more pictures of her ride and her past projects.
I guess we have to talk about D23. We might have talked about the best thing at D23 already. But no, well, I don't want to be too cynical about it, but it definitely, I think you were right to be like, I hate all this fan speculation about Fantastic Four casting ahead of time. Yep. You are 100% right about that. I think it was a perfectly fine D23 in terms of announcements, but it was not like one of those years that's going to go down in history for like round earth-shattering announcements.
I think about this, and it's funny because last week we covered the Apple keynote and the annual Apple events, and there's a lot of parallels between, and Disney and Apple are kind of joined at the hip in many ways. Famous, in Steve Jobs, there's relationships in Disney and Bob Iger, but the way the showmanship of it all, the theatrics of it all, plus the kind of fan fervor of the anticipation, and both companies had groundbreaking and revelatory announcements in the past. And in many ways, the Apple keynote has become subdued over the years as everyone's kind of waiting for that next big thing. And yet we're getting, iterative improvements. The best thing so far, best phone so far, best, X device so far, best watch so far. And then Disney, very much the same thing. I think the expectations were so high after the first 2 or 3 phases of Marvel, after, of course, what happened at Comic-Con this past year. I think we could only have been disappointed. Like because they can't go for broke every year. There can't be an end game level of announcement every year. They got to build up to it, and this felt like a building up year.
That being said, there were still some interesting announcements to discuss. Yes. Where should we start?
Well, let's start with Star Wars, because I think that was one of the first things. So Lucasfilm, I guess, and neither of us were there, so what we're talking about really has to pertain with the big theater announcements, where in Anaheim at the big center stage, the big their equivalent of Hall H, there are panels every day going over the stuff from the different studios, whether it's Walt Disney Animation, Pixar, Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, the park stuff. So a lot of what we can talk about was actually the more interesting stuff happens on the show floor, right? Because there's the exhibits on the show floor, the retrospectives, the big parks exhibits where they have the miniatures of the upcoming, renovations and retheming of the different lands, the museum stuff. So the archives, the Walt Disney Archives, they sometimes bring stuff out. So unfortunately, we don't have coverage from that. But for the announcements, Star Wars, were you surprised no new movies announced?
No, I'm actually relieved there's no new movies. I feel like after episode 9, I think the universe could use a little bit of a break. The best thing going is Mandalorian. Let that breathe a little, and not try to kind of force a movie that either takes away steam from that show or kind of tries to force that show into the movie canon, both of which would have been mistakes. Yeah. I'm actually most excited for them to revive one-shot films coming out, like a la Rogue One, in the future, but it feels like let's take a pause.
Yeah, right. And of course, there's also Celebration as well. So we imagine if they're going to announce any movies, it's going to be at Celebration. We are leading up to the animated series and the live-action series that are coming out. So the final trailer for Andor. You had Tales of the Jedi, the animated series. Not quite an anthology, but an interesting take. They're short episodes, but following Ahsoka and also Count Dooku, so their trajectories.
If you're a fan of Clone Wars or Rebels, I think that that anthology is for you.
And then Skeleton Crew, which is a previously announced series, I believe. This one's the one helmed by John Watts. So previously he was attached to direct Fantastic Four after he directed the 3 MCU Spider-Man films. But this is going to be more of an Amblin style Star Wars adventure with kids, with one adult. So they had one still, and it's Jude Law as the lead adult in the series. So the image didn't really read to me as Star Wars. It read to me as Jude Law's in this. I'll let you know Jude Law's in this. And some kids are in the background. So nothing really to say about that. But we did get to see Mandalorian Season 3, the trailer, the first footage from Season 3 of Mando coming in 2023, just next year. And this one felt weird because we saw a lot of Mando in Book of Boba Fett. So it didn't feel like it, we were waiting all that long for more Mando.
Yeah, it's true, but I will say, like, this is a pronounced shift. Like, Mando season 1 and 2 were actually not about him. They were mostly about his journey with Grogu. Now it feels like this is turning back inward. They got the pair back together. The band is back together, and so they might as well make this about Mando himself. And we are going to Mandalore. And like it seems right. It seems like the right next escalation step if we want the story to continue.
Lots of familiar faces. You have Carl Weathers back, and every time he comes back, he's like more regal. He's elevated in status. Really, kind of a
little bit more velvet. A little bit more velvet somewhere.
Yeah. He is. What's his character's name in Mandalorian? He is. Oh, gosh, I completely forgot his name in Mando. I think he's going to direct an episode as well, or at least talk about one. He did direct an episode in the last season. Grief Karga. That's right.
Yeah.
Grief Karga. It's not a great name. It's a very Star Wars name. Not a great name. He's Carl Weathers, of course. You have also you have the oh my gosh,
Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan. Yes, Bo-Katan is back. Seems like a big antagonist potentially in this season.
I think the tension is between Bo-Katan and then the cult, as she termed it, that Mando is part of with the Armorer. And I think we're going to see like the whole arc of the season is going to be based off of his own internal struggle as these two factions, I don't know what else to call them, fight for control of Mandalore, and in so doing he tries to rediscover his soul. God, I'm good at writing like bad recap trailer sayings for you, Disney. So take that one and throw it out. That was terrible. You're forgetting the most important character that we saw, the salacious
Babu Frick. Maybe Babu Frick.
Babu Frick was great. I think it's all the salacious crumbs in the trees.
Okay.
Would be my favorite. Salacious crumb. There was all of them were there. So the Kowakian monkey brigade is going to be well represented here. And definitely Babu Frick.
Pretty good. Yeah. Amos Sedaris is back. So you're going to see maybe more upgrades to Mando's new ship, the re-engineered Naboo Starfighter. And it's interesting that there are shots in the trailer where it's not Grogu that's up in the viewing port. Grogu is now back in Mando's lap, and R5D4 is going to be the astromech helping Mando with his starfighting. So I love that. I love bringing more R5. Always a fan of that. What struck me about the action and the locations is that now there are 5 Star Wars shows in live action. I'm not counting Andor, since that was, I think, shot a little differently than Mando season 1, Mando season 2, Book of Boba Fett, and also Obi-Wan. In that they seem to have refined or found a balance or just more experience with shooting with the volume. It was tougher to discern in the trailer, and maybe the budgets are different, maybe the scope of it is different, maybe because they can do more location stuff or build out more soundstage and more sets. But from what I saw, it looked markedly different, just in the way the camera moved than some of the stuff that we saw in the first couple seasons of Mando.
Yeah. I think the angles changed the most. I'm used to that kind of ground up shot of somebody like walking towards you as being like a traditional Mando style, which is totally appropriate because that is classic Western cinematography. But in this trailer, we see starfighting, we see, jumping out of starships, and the angles all change to naturally reflect that viewpoint. And so it looks really different, but we assume they're still using the volume for a majority of those shots.
Or a lot of it. Yeah. Where they can. But, it's now they're heavily using it, right? It's a mature technology, and I'm sure they're innovating and building out different spaces and configurations. It looks good. I'm very excited for that. Also, a full trailer for Willow, the series on Disney Plus, and this looks expensive as well. Like there's a lot of cool location stuff that they did here. It's a different type of fantasy. I love that word, the age of high fantasy on streaming. Really enjoying, if you heard on the podcast, watching both Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, as well as House of the Dragon. And when Willow starts debuting, it's going to be a different flavor of fantasy as well, and it's all very nostalgic. It has that kind of handsome vibe to it.
Yeah, you can keep your high fantasy. I'm all in on Madison with 2 N's at this point. So
and a Y, but not where you expect it.
Yeah, I think the Willow series did look good. I'm not sure I needed this. I don't have the nostalgia for Willow as strongly as others do, but it certainly looked totally good.
You know, that not having the nostalgia the way some other people do kind of is emblematic of a lot of the content that they showed. It's I was watching the trailers and watching the announcement. I'm saying I know the person that they want to be excited about things like Hocus Pocus 2 or Disenchanted, but and maybe and even a National Treasure, but like those are also could be niche audiences. They're like cult favorites, right? Which there's a whole generation of Gen Z audience members that may not remember them fondly, and those movies and those shows weren't as widely loved or beloved, and some of that stuff doesn't always hold up. So it is tapping into nostalgia, but not in the same type of nostalgia as Star Wars or going back to Indiana Jones. It's more niche nostalgia. Like, who remembers? Like, I'm going to watch Disenchanted because I love that first film, but will kids like Disenchanted? Will it feel like would it resonate with them?
Of all, and we might as well move to like the Disney Pixar stuff, since we're talking about Enchanted. Enchanted is one that I felt like earned the sequel more than anything else. Hocus Pocus, total cult favorite. People love that film. That's a sequel born out of nostalgia. Enchanted was actually a good film.
It is a good film. Yeah.
It's a really good film, and I totally understand them going a sequel route with Disenchanted. And then on the other side, you have Haunted Mansion. Jamie Lee Curtis inspired casting still.
From Madame Leota. Yes.
Very nostalgia driven. So like, and then the rest of what was really put on showcase were live action remakes of the animated. Of the live actions, what stood out to you?
Well, when we say live action, we mean photoreal, because we've had the discussion before of Lion King being the live action movie, but it's the CG photoreal version of a different animation of a different flavor, right? So while we didn't see footage from Lion King, the prequel now, Mufasa, they did announce that it is a prequel. It's going to be about the coming of age of Mufasa. Barry Jenkins directing that, so he's great grasp on story. I want to go back to Haunted Mansion because, of course, there was the Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion film, and this is Disney trying to capture the magic. I think they've been chasing pirates forever, right?
Yeah.
Taking iconic rides. Tomorrowland didn't quite do it. It was a big budget, big risk, but they had that one massive hit, turning a ride into a movie, and then kind of the Ouroboros of the movie franchise feeding back into the park stuff. And Haunted Mansion, one of the most beloved rides at Disneyland and Walt Disney World, they have not had a great success having that fandom permeate the mainstream pop culture with the film. So I'm a big fan of the ride. I love Haunted Mansion, and it is a tricky balance of how do you tell a compelling story without being too many nods and tip of the hats to the ride. It has to be a good story on its own.
Mm-hmm. That one you can have a lot of fun with because you can go just crazy with it and have a good time.
So the live action remake. So I guess we saw a Little Mermaid trailer, and all I could say is that the singing is incredible.
Yeah.
And even the sound on YouTube sounded so good. Like the attention to the sound mix, so good. The CG hair is something underwater that's been an interesting development over the years. Aquaman did it a certain way. Avatar is going to do it a certain way. I'm sure Black Panther, all the Atlanta stuff is going to tackle the hair a certain way. So that from a technological standpoint, going to be very interesting. I think the casting. I'm going to wait for the movie. I think it's going to be interesting.
That is number one by a mile of all these live action remakes. Mufasa, there's no antagonist in this movie. Like what is that movie about?
It does scream direct to DVD. Like this 20 years ago would have been a direct to DVD story.
Yeah, like Peter Pan and Wendy, I feel like we've gone to that well so many times. It's gonna take just a total reimagining, but we've even done the reimagining well so many times on that story that I'm not there. Little Mermaid is so iconic. The songs there are so iconic, and I love that there is just enough of a twist on how she sang Ariel's classic that I'm like, oh, I'm all in. This is going to be fantastic.
It's going to be clearly a musical, right? I think this is going to it's going to be on the strength of the singing, the sing along ability, and the emotional performance. And I think a lot of what they like when they did release Mulan, there were musical tones that were reminiscent, but they didn't have the straight up songs. But I feel like this one, it's going to be straight up songs in very much the same way that Beauty and the Beast was.
Yeah, and when they get to Moana, same thing. It's just going to be.
That's going to make me feel so old. No,
it's coming.
Do you think The Rock's coming? The Rock's going to come back? Maybe recast him as Chief Tui?
Yeah. How many years away are we from them catching up? Like, I don't know, like 6-7 years? Like, it doesn't feel as far away as we think. I don't know how long The Rock can keep himself pumped up. Maybe he'll actually look like Maui by the time that comes around. He'll have added a few pounds, but Little Mermaid, all in on.
Yeah. Last bit of Disney stuff. They did hand out 3D glasses to everyone in the theater to screen 48 FPS high frame rate scenes of Avatar 2. And I am so pumped for this, Kishore. I can feel the energy. Like so much of the relationship between film goers and studios today is there's narrative and they're out of the studio's control, right? There's momentum and there's just cultural buzz. There's negativity in some spaces. There's championing, actors and storylines, and in other places, like marketing is a whole different thing. It's an alchemy that is beyond, I think, the grasp of a lot of old school marketers and old timers like us. But I feel there's an energy for Avatar 2. I feel like their Avatar stands out there are on the rise, and they want. Have you seen this? The Avatar sweep is, I think, the hashtag that's been popped up. There's like momentum growing enough. Like it's the timing. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's like gone past the time where it was corny to now it is a cult hit again, and everyone's remembering that Avatar was actually a good film, and there's excitement. Like James Cameron could have another hit on his hands.
I'm sure it's going to do well, and I'm sorry, listeners, to be like, I don't want to be that negative person, but I miss me with this movie. Like, I watched the original 2-3 weeks ago. The humans are so caricatures. Yeah. Like if he could make humans act kind of more normal, I could be in on this story. Or hear me out, no humans. Like, I could be okay. Like, but we already know from the trailer there's going to be some humans, and I don't know if I can deal with them being like caricature villains and buy along. Now, I've heard a lot of people I trust, especially like movie aficionados and critics, be like, it's James Cameron with like as much of an unlimited budget as he's can ever be given. Just go see it. Like, he produces. It may not be great, but it'll be good because he doesn't produce like total bombs. So I'll probably go see it, but I am not like coming out. I'm not on the hype train, and I don't agree that the Avatar stands are out in force as much as you think.
There are more of us than you think. I am pumping that coal into the hype train. Whatever the train runs on,
Okay.
I'm fueling it up. Stephen Lang's back. Quaritch, the villain. Yeah, but I agree. Yeah, James Cameron goes back to the basics in terms of mythical storytelling. Like the stories are about emotion. They are caricatures to a point. He knows the formula, but then he also finds an interesting. He pushes the boundaries of filmmaking, and I think the underwater stuff, the high frame rate stuff, 3D being something he has mastered, like and performance capture being something that that really pioneered with Avatar, the the facial capture stuff, and what they've done now, what they're able to do now. I'm really just from a tech standpoint, I'm really curious to see it.
Okay. I think the only thing I'm going to do to slow you down is say, like, before we say he's mastered 3D, can we at least get to the second movie he's done in 3D? He's done one movie in 3D. Let's ease off on master talk.
He's done documentaries. He's filmed underwater expeditions in 3D.
Get out of here with that stuff.
Okay, all right, let's move on.
Let's talk about Pixar before we go over to Marvel.
Yep.
Elemental is the thing that I'm still stuck on because the characters are volumetric. Like there's fire and there's wave. It's a water-based character, but like I am so interested in how the technical behind the scenes thing of how they render characters like that. And we got some hints on Twitter from some Pixar folks saying that it was more challenging than what you saw in Soul in terms of the volumetric rendering. So I'm interested in that most of all from a technical standpoint.
Going back to volumetric characters, some of the most iconic volumetric sprite-based characters were from Inside Out. And Inside Out 2 is coming out. I believe Pete Docter's coming back. You're going to have Amy Poehler as Joy coming back. We got confirmation. Our local newspaper, SF The Chronicle, confirmed that it will be set in San Francisco. Yes. Local San Francisco film. Some of the voice actors aren't coming back, Minnie Kaling discussed, but I'm excited because it's right. Enough time has passed that I now have a child that really enjoys Inside Out in book form, knows the characters, and this may be a film by the time it comes out. I can take them and see it in theaters.
Yeah, if they bing bong me again, I'm not sure I could handle another Pixar movie.
Cry those candy tears.
Oh my god! I teenager. You think that's going to be the focus here?
I think so. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. There's got to be. I mean, I expect it. I would hope that there will be surprises, and they will go beyond what the cliche teen angst storylines. That there's complexity in the fusion of emotions and all the things, and they take the revelatory aspects of the Inside Out was so powerful because of the core beyond like all the abstract concepts, the metaphysical storytelling, right? Of like what of the personifications of like events happening in one plane of the real world versus what's happening in her head. Like my head still is wrapping around like the deterministic aspects of like who's controlling what go here. But there was the core revelation in that storyline that joy, that sorrow is important, that sadness is important, that you have to embrace sadness as a human being in order to move forward and to experience your other emotions. And that core concept is so it was so powerful, it was so resonant, and it was such an aha thing that I hope they come up with something similar in the storytelling.
Absolutely. We all got a credit for 2 hours of therapy from going to that last time.
They also previewed another film they're working on, just a piece of concept art, but it's called Elio, Elio, all caps. And it's a character named Elio, a boy who finds himself transported across the galaxy and mistaken for the intergalactic ambassador for our planet Earth. Okay. All
I
right.
gotta say, of all the ideas Pixar's come out with lately, I'm probably most excited about this. This is well, Soul as well, but this is out there. This is completely different. This is off script from everything else we've heard, and so it feels like them stretching in a lot of ways. Sign me up.
Yep. High concept, fantastical worlds. Very interesting to see how this plays against Walt Disney Animation, their fellow animation company, doing Strange World, also a fantastical story, but that one more of a family adventure than a single character's journey. In that world, Disney and Walt Disney Animation, they also announced Wish. Again, this is high concept. This is the origin of the star that is in the line "Wish upon a star."
No thanks.
I'm really curious about the pitch meeting for that.
2024. We talk.
Right.
We launch a film about the brick maker that made the bricks that go into the magic castle. 2025. It's gonna be
Jiminy Crickets, the prequel, right? Jiminy. Okay, Marvel. So here's where we expected the most, and were given perhaps the least by contrast of that expectation. Because we didn't, on face value, not get anything. We got trailers, we got footage, we got announcements, cast members went on stage. But I think given how much was announced at Comic-Con, given all the stupid Twitter hype about Fantastic Four, it's hard to have left this without wanting more. But let's talk about what we did get and new stuff. We got a trailer for Werewolf by Night, directed by Michael Giacchino, his directorial debut.
Number one with a bullet, a special presentation launching at Halloween. That is essentially our first kind of pulpy horror take in the Marvel universe. Anyone that's played the game Werewolf will identify the kind of setup. Lots of throwback horror homages in this. 1,000% get me signed up for this. Just perfect. I'm so hyped about this. This was the best thing they screened out of the Marvel stuff.
So you bear the lead. It's black and white. When you say it's pulpy, it's grindhouse pulpy. The tone of it would not be out of sync with a Tarantino Rodriguez grindhouse triple feature. Like that was the tone of the trailer at the very least. Black and white, exaggerated, pulling from the deep, the reservoirs of the Marvel's 5,000 character strong library, with Man-Thing making an appearance. People freaking out on the internet over Man-Thing, not Swamp Thing, Man-Thing. He's the one with the carrot-like tentacles on his face. And then also Elsa Bloodstone, although not confirmed as the character, but that is who everyone assumes it is, Elsa Bloodstone. And she was, if you have read Next Wave, it's Warren Ellis's, and I believe Stuart Eminem did the art, miniseries. It's badass. Has one of the Captain Marvels, Monica Rambeau. It has MODOKs aplenty. There are asshole robots, but she is the bounty hunter in that, with the big orange hair, red hair. Different take on that in this, but it's a fan favorite character as well. So it's been great to see her enter one part of the MCU.
Mm-hmm. From that, I'm going to go to my second favorite thing, which was Secret Invasion. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a well-trod storyline. I think came out in 2008, I want to say. The comic that I think this is based off of. This is very much psychological thriller. It feels like the worthy sequel to Captain America: Winter Soldier. It feels very much like, let's take that kind of spy aesthetic and just amp up the psychological thriller aspects to it. I don't want to talk too much about the storyline here because I think it'll prove to be spoilers, but it is very much focused on Nick Fury being completely obsessed and in his head, and like having some mania going on, and is probably deserved, but also probably a little bit like where he goes off the deep end too. Um, and this one is full of actors that can act. And so I think that's why I think I'm most excited about this. Is like
Yeah.
Sam Jackson, you got Krennic, you got Maria Hill. Like those are all actors that can kind of carry their own weight. Martin Freeman makes an appearance. Like they're
Olivia Colman. You
Olivia, yeah.
have Daenerys Targaryen herself.
She might have been the weakest actor of the bunch, but maybe that's.
I think intentionally subdued in the trailer is my suspicion. So when you say psychological thriller, also political thriller. You don't see any superpowered beings, which I know a lot of people are guessing, like, is this take place during the blip when there are no superheroes? And I think this is about espionage. I think it's about governments. And there are superpowered things that happen, but this is not an Avengers level storyline, even though it is an Avengers level threat. It's body snatchers. It's about not knowing who to trust, and it does look globetrotting. It does look like it has elements of a Tom Clancy story. So the different tone, and I'm really glad actually this is going to be in Disney Plus, because I think it does over the week by week aspect of the storytelling is going to allow for them to do reveals and plot twists and have the water cooler discussion that people love for the MCU. So that trailer looked fantastic. And then they brought a bunch of people on stage to just get updates for things that we knew already were going on. Armor Wars, Loki season 2, which now they got a Wayman, they got a Data, they got a short round. Ki Kwan has joined the multiverse, or a different multiverse, in Loki season 2. And we didn't talk about Indy 5, but while he wasn't part of the Indy 5 presentation, we did get the best picture on the internet all week, which was a reunion between Ki Kwan and Harrison Ford. A smiling, a joyful Harrison Ford.
That's why people couldn't believe that picture. They were like, "What? What? Why is he? Why is he smiling?"
I got the feels. I got the feels.
That was perfect, and it was clearly very authentic backstage. Like, oh my god, I haven't seen you in so long. Hug picture.
When you say I haven't seen you in so long, the last time, I don't know the last time, but what we know them from relationships, he was a child. This is like decades and decades and decades later. That is a 40-something odd year old man. When the last time we saw him with Indy, he was but a tween, and it just pulled us back into the feeling of the relationship of in Temple of Doom. It made me want to rewatch Temple of Doom immediately after seeing that picture. Fantastic Four, no cast. But they did confirm the director, Matt Shakman, who directed WandaVision, is now the confirmed director of Fantastic Four. So, yep, that's all we got from that. Echo, I think, attendees saw some footage. We didn't get to see it. Daredevil Born Again confirmed 18 episodes. Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, highly anticipated. We saw a little preview of more Daredevil and She-Hulk. That's on the internet. And the last thing is Thunderbolts. A Thunderbolts full lineup. A bunch of science experiments on screen.
Yeah, we
failed
got
science experiments.
A confirmed cast. So we have Ghost, Taskmaster, Yelena, our boy Bucky. What is
U.S. agent?
U.S. agent. I was forgetting.
Red Guardian.
Red Guardian. David Harbour. That was, I think, the surprise of the bunch. And then Julia Louis-Dreyfus as sort of the mastermind leader behind it. I think the one name I was expecting that wasn't there was Baron Zemo. I thought that was the one that makes the most sense. He might be the antagonist of the film.
That's the suspicion, that maybe he tries to be recruited and he sabotages it, becomes the Avenger style, like they all have to stop him. or he implodes them from the inside. Because that lineup, there are some pairings there. Like there's existing relationships that are interesting. Obviously, Yelena and Red Guardian, but then there's Bucky and Red Guardian. There's U.S. Agent and Red Guardian. There's Bucky and U.S. Agent have that existing relationship. There are going to be some factioning, right? And interesting confrontations. And then there's like Ghost and Taskmaster also.
Yeah, who don't say anything and just are going to punch stuff. I think this movie is going to rest a lot on Florence Pugh, which is probably a good bet from everything that we've seen from her. Just tremendous actress. I thought she was, even in Hawkeye, which was disappointing at points, I thought she was excellent in it. And she's starting to get a rep of being excellent in like weirdly weird drama-filled projects. So hopefully that's not the case here. I want as much Julia Louis-Dreyfus as possible. Val is the most compelling character of the bunch to me.
You know, I forgot that this was a film. In my mind, it was a Disney Plus show.
No, it's a straight up movie. So
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of time to like do like the episode where these two hang out. They got to all get together like that.
Yeah. Wow. And it's going to be big budget. And it's going to be like, it's going to, you know, the choreography, it's going to, and a lot of these characters we only saw in film, like Red Guardian and Ghost and Taskmaster, but it's going to be Bucky. I feel like they're not going to nerf him like they did a little bit in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And they're going to give him, you know, it's going to be full strength Winter Soldier Bucky, potentially. All right. Very excited for that. And that basically all the movie stuff, pop culture stuff out of D23. There are a bunch of park announcements, but we're not going to dive into that.
Thanos. All right, that's it.
Okay,
I'm done.
That's the e-ticket ride for Adventures Campus, right? That's the big ride that's coming up. It's going to be a weird multiversal, everyone versus a version of Thanos, Lord of the Rings, a Sauron-like Thanos. All right, we don't know many more details other than a piece of concept art.
Norm, he's from the end of the universe.
Oh, okay.
And he has to battle him. No, I'm not going to get into it.
Okay, moving on. This is the week that the products announced previously at the Apple event are starting to get reviewed and come out. The phone reviews, watch reviews have not been published as our recording, but some interesting new details, especially in the watch territory. A lot of times we look at these announcements, and as a company like Apple touts new features, one of the things we try to evaluate is how much of this makes it worthwhile for people to upgrade if they want to maximize the upgrade, right? We always think about if you're buying a product, are you going to buy it so it's going to have the longest life because it's a generational bump more than a iterative bump? And we're getting more details that looks more and more like this is the iterative bump, that the Apple Watch Series 8 actually uses the same processor as the Series 7 and Series 6 even. So 3-year-old CPU, which might mean that the next year's Apple Watch could be the one where they finally move into a 3-nanometer process with a massive jump in battery life. So maybe just based on that, unless you need it, hold off. You can keep your Apple Watch that you've paid $400 for another year before you upgrade. And then, of course, the new phones are coming out this Friday. And I forgot to say, I won't even be around to get the phone, because I'm taking a small holiday this weekend and taking the family down to Disneyland.
Oh, so there's going to be a free phone on your doorstep a couple days from now?
No.
Are you sure
that is
about
not the case.
Okay. Right.
So yeah, going to be down at Disneyland. First time back at the park since 2020. Went to there. Was very lucky to, as we talked about, to go to Walt Disney World in February, right before the world shut down, and now going back to Disneyland and hopefully maybe see Avengers Campus. Probably won't get to see anything. They'll be the kids' first time in a world where they can remember things. So wish me luck. Pray for me. Pray for a sanitary trip, a sanitary and a sane trip.
My hope for you is that a random hurricane doesn't make landfall in Southern California.
Or that's not 110 degrees, 112 degrees. Yeah, that's
somewhere in between the two.
Yeah. Please. 80-degree weather, I'll be okay with. There were a couple other events just today, actually, in the video game world. So both Nintendo and Sony had their kind of regular streaming uh, announcements. And for Nintendo, the big thing, aside from a bunch of farming simulators, was Breath of the Wild 2 gets a name and a
Are you,
trailer.
I like fell out of my seat because I had stopped watching the Nintendo Directs because I was like every time after that first trailer, I'm like, I'm gonna watch it. They're gonna announce release date. And today was the first one I didn't watch like in the last 6 months. And then like I opened Twitter in the middle of the day and it was just like Tears of the Kingdom. I'm like, what is that? And I look at it and I watched the trailer and fell out of my seat. I am so deep in on this sequel. Take all the time you need, but here the important thing: May 23rd, 2023. They gave us a date. I think Nintendo has a track record of once they give you the date, that's the date. So here we go. Clear off your early summer 2023 because you're playing this game. We get another trailer. It shows some gameplay, but I think the important thing about the trailer, without kind of spoiling too much, uh, this is up in the clouds of Hyrule, and there are some new mechanics that allow Link to probably manipulate time and use that to climb into the clouds. We saw that with his stasis. I think we are going to see an extension of that stasis power, and in terms of rewinding time, and that's how he's going to be able to sort of get to places where he needs to go, and also like a kind of like phasing through wall power that we saw in the first trailer as well. But I think the most interesting thing is we got imagery that evokes that mystical tribe, the what are they called, the Zonia tribe, that was like predated all of this kind of stuff, and we saw some imagery of like a deity or a figure that probably going to be a central role in the storyline.
And it's for Switch. There is no Switch Pro. I mean, there's not enough time for them to announce new hardware at this point, ahead of a summer E3 style. Aside from it would be next summer, right? That any and next holiday is probably when, at this point, when we can expect a Switch Pro. So this is even like a mid generation, like a mid platform between two console generation Zelda. This is firmly for Switch. A 6-year-old piece of hardware now, and the trailer showed some massive landscapes. So the art direction looked as beautiful as ever, and can't wait for people to find ways to emulate it on the Steam Deck.
Yeah, the only thing I'm disappointed in is like not enough cooking montages. Like, are you going to be able to cook up there? I hope so. Cooking was one of my favorite parts of the game last time.
Crafting, climbing trees, climbing all sorts of stuff, climbing clouds, climbing that rain cloud. Yeah. On the PlayStation side, State of Play on the PS5. The big thing, aside from, I guess, Tekken 8 was announced, but God of War Ragnarok gets a story trailer. Looks good. Looks very good.
Oh, Kratos. That guy's soul is just getting ripped apart, man. Like, this is brutal. Like, watching that storyline. Look, he's going to suffer some more. I feel like he's been through enough, but we have a slightly older child with Kratos, and there's some really just astounding visuals associated game. We see some callbacks to some villains and fights from the first game just extended forward, and then it ends with a dramatic boss battle fight that I was blown away by.
Hammers will clash. You're gonna get the God of War equivalent of Stormbreaker versus Mjolnir, and just a brief flash of weapons clashing was incredible. Although, funny enough, Kratos was kind of a god killer. He was kind of the Gore of of the PlayStation world in the previous God of Wars. So very funny how that all comes around.
Before we wrap up, I just want to say, going back to Nintendo, It Takes Two is going to the Switch
Mm.
as well, was announced. That was by far and away my favorite game of last year. Just incredible. I think it won Game of the Year a lot of times. So if you haven't played that game, I really encourage you to pick it up.
Yep. And the PSVR 2 news that came out of State of Play. Demio is going to PSVR 2. There's going to be a remastered, I guess, graphically updated Tales from Galaxy Edge from ILM X Lab, but no other announcements about PSVR 2. In the VR world, we would be remiss if we didn't mention that even though Meta Connect is October 11th, less than a month away now, if you work in a certain hotel and you picked up some trash, you found, and maybe the thing to do is do a live stream, because the Meta Quest Pro has possibly been leaked. It's probably the real thing based on what this hardware looked like, and there's footage out there. You can look at all the major VR sites to see, but someone found in a very iPhone 4 like way hardware that was not supposed to be in the world, and including the boxes for it. So not running hardware, but at least the physical form factor and the name was the big thing. It said Meta Quest Pro on the box, which was the assumed name for Project Cambria. So I'm sure they're scrambling over there for the keynote writers, the speech writers, and figuring out ways to acknowledge and still surprise at the upcoming event. This was not no way this was like a planned PR leak.
They picked, if so, they picked a weird week that was full of news to like it seemed like bad timing. I know it's going to be a month before we actually get hands on with it. What did you think of the pictures you saw?
I mean, nothing was really that surprising. I mean, they teased so much of it from renders, from like hidden, blurred out images. From the conversations that I had when I went over to Reality Labs, right? Pancake lenses are what they're going with. So form factor wise, this is supposed to be kind of leading into the next generation of VR headsets, that we're not going to have a lot of bulk and mass in the front. They're going to be closer ergonomically and more comfortable to wear, but obviously we're going to want to wear them and use them ourselves. And it's just a matter of, if all the talks about face tracking and the cameras potentially on the controllers themselves, and all the gesture and body tracking potentially, what that means in software, and of course price. We have no idea what that is.
Yeah, I will say it was slightly sleeker than I expected. Like in terms of like shape and design and all of that kind of stuff. But I do think like it photoed better than I expected. I think this is going to be a really good looking headset, which is not entirely what I expected. I expected the bulk to go down, but it looks straight up sleek.
I mean, regardless of where the price point is, because that's going to certainly be a thing, and also how they're pitching it, being a more enterprise versus a consumer headset, because the Quest 2 presumably will still be around for sale. And if the rumors are true, that's running on this essentially just an iterative small improvement over the XR2 Qualcomm processor. It's going to be, theoretically backward compatible software-wise with all the stuff on Quest 2 right now. The form factor and the pass-through first design, right, that they've talked about, this being a color pass-through, that could fundamentally change the relationship that people have with a headset in their day-to-day computing. I think and we'll certainly talk more about this, but my expectation is that they're positioning this and this style of headset to be something that you have alongside your laptop, alongside your desktop, so that you might be doing traditional computing, whether on your phone or a computer or desktop or laptop, whatever, but that you can seamlessly, for many number of tasks, especially these type of social interactions and these networking things, put on the headset very easily and get pass through AR capabilities that don't feel as isolating as VR traditionally has been. That pass-through will be such a big part of the experience, and the ease of and the comfort of a pancake lens-based headset. It won't feel like this delineation between I'm computing on a computer, a desktop, and I'm computing in VR, it just becomes like your phone. You would have your phone next to your laptop.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the hope. Last bit of VR. This is a fan-made thing, but it's worth mentioning, but it's because the buzz around this is tremendous. On September 16th, the Half-Life 2 VR mods, fan-made VR mod by the Source VR mod team, is going to release. It's on Steam right now that you can subscribe to, but will unlock in maybe by the time you listen to this. But from all reports, this is, if you own Half-Life 2 and you can import those assets, this would be an incredible new way to play Half-Life 2 with full motion controls, with a lot of tweaks to make it very VR friendly, and a new way to experience that campaign.
This must have been a ton of work because literally there's assets that you can pick up, and I mean not just like weapons, just like stuff. And in the trailer, you can see you can pick up a can and stuff and lean around corners to shoot. Like, so much work went into this. It also is just awesome to see all this. Again, it's been years since I played Half-Life 2.
Yeah, I think it's still early access, or they're still going to be, they said on Reddit that they're still going to be doing updates, and there are tweaks that they're not completely happy with. So if this is something that you plan on just going back in the once to play Half-Life 2, it might be worth waiting a little bit. Maybe just try it to get the confidence that it is a thing that works, but maybe wait until there's a big patch or the final release before doing the full campaign in Half-Life 2. But I'll be trying it on the 16th. I'm very excited for this. And that basically does it for this week. We have a bunch of cool videos on the site. As we alluded to last week, we have some behind the scenes of the post-production of Thor Love and Thunder. We have to visit Skywalker Sound. The first video is out on the site, and we have another video coming out this Friday as well, where Adam dives into the sound library, the sound effects library of Skywalker Sound. So they have this incredible catalog of over 700,000 effects that their sound designers and Foley artists have created over the years, and they're all tagged and metadataed. And so a sound designer can literally type in like arc reactor, boot up or something, and pull up, from the Marvel section of that library for use on the sound design when they're working on a Marvel film.
That's pretty cool.
We also have some Lego builds coming up. So I think I said this. Yeah. We had a visit to our studio. Angus Mclean, director of Lightyear, did something fun with us.
Among other things that he's directed with said company.
Yes. Pixar director Angus Mclean did some fun Lego stuff, and we have a couple videos with him coming out. Super nice guy, and you may have read stories about how he's a massive Lego fan. He's like Sean Charlesworth's level, or Brett Waller levels of Lego fan. This guy's like deep in Lego. He designed the WALL-E set, the Lego Ideas WALL-E set. Right, worked on WALL-E, designed the official WALL-E set, got Lego to turn it into a real set. Like, has that credit to his name. But in the pre-production of Lightyear, as he was drafting up concepts, he used Lego to prototype the ships, and gave the actual physical Lego builds to the design team to then work off and create concept art and CG models. That's based off. Amazing. And there's some discussion about why that's the case. The actual, there's a tactility and a definition to Lego pieces that can't be replicated with a pure CG model. And it's a fun discussion, a really fun video, and it's going to be on the site later this week. Cross our fingers.
I just really quickly, if you haven't watched the BB-8 build from Cy DeLacy and Chris Stroud that went up this week untested, really recommend watching it. It's really delightful to see that fan build BB-8 in action and hear from them about the process around that build.
That was one of those interviews. I'll give you a peek behind the curtain. First of all, I was so tired we filmed on Sunday of Silicon that whenever we do like a 3-person video where I'm chatting with 2 other people, sometimes we have to do funky audio stuff, and I was wearing a separate mic, and I forgot to press record on my mic. So I'm actually, all my audio is being picked up by size microphone. So apologies for the poor audio in that one. Total user error. But I wish I could do that interview again, because I got a chance to check out and chat with them more after the fact and got to see some of the mechanics of their BB-8. And there are more things I wish we had talked about that they could share. But we're going to revisit them as they try to add more mechanical stuff and features and refine that build. But like, that is a polished, not just like from the animation standpoint and the personality that comes out of how they did that design, but that is a really polished build. The shell being, side modeled it for SLS printing. It has like a real interesting like structure on the inside. The way the head moves, the way the light is powered. Oh, like there's so much stuff that I wish I had more opportunity to discuss, but I have a feeling we'll be seeing it back, that BB-8 back untested before too long. And that does it for the podcast this week. Kishore, I know we said we're going to keep it short, but we went for an hour.
Somebody had to talk about King Thanos.
Yeah. And well, what's next week? No big events next week. Maybe I'll recap how Disney went.
Yeah, we're not too far away from Google's announcement. I think that's in 3 weeks, potentially. And then I'm excited about NVIDIA is going to debut an AI powered chip. They released like a blog post about their new GPU that's really optimized for AI control that looks like it'll be a huge step forward in being able to power things like GPT-3 and stuff. So I think that's coming not too far from now too.
Yeah, new graphics card, a whole new generation of graphics card as well. Fun stuff as always. Thank you all for listening. Sorry it was so Disney-centric this week, but we'll be back next week. Do I have an outro? Let's not go with an outro. I'll spare you 30 seconds. I'll throw it in after the edit, in the edit. But thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Tested.
But with that, we'll say goodbye because there will be no outro this week. I hope you enjoyed the testes, and we'll see you next week.
Adios.
Bye.
Tested.